Hi, this is Arn Menconi again for another interview. This time I'm very honored to have Professor Marjorie Cohn. Marjorie is a law professor at Thomas Jefferson Law School. She's the past president of the National Lawyers Guild. Has been an expert witness in congressional hearings for illegal activities and actions by our government. She's written several books. Her three last books were most recently Drones and Targeted Killings, Legal, Moral, and Geopolitical Issues, Rules of Disengagement, The Politics and Honor of Military Dissent, and Cowboy Republic, 6 Ways the Bush Government Defied the Law. Hello, Marjorie.
Hi, Arn.
Marjorie, I want us to start back with your book, Cowboy Republic, because I think you set an excellent framework on the illegal activity of the Bush administration in taking us into war. Would you list those 6 main areas, and then let's see how many of those and any new ones that might be applying to our present administration?
The first is Bush's illegal war of aggression against Iraq. The UN Charter is very clear that countries must settle their disputes peacefully, and one country can use military force against another country only in self-defense or when the Security Council gives its blessing. And neither of those things had occurred before Bush invaded Iraq illegally changed its regime, and occupied the country and installed a puppet government. And of course, aside from the illegality, we're seeing the blowback now, the instability created largely by that invasion of Iraq and the growth of ISIS. The second main, I guess you would say, wrongdoing, illegality by the Bush administration was the torture of prisoners. We've all seen the Senate Intelligence Committee report. Actually, we only saw the executive summary. It was a 500-page executive summary. The 6,700-page report was never released. But thousands, we don't know how many, thousands of men were tortured systematically during the Bush administration. And that, of course, also not only violated the law, was not only immoral, but also made us less safe, because when people see other people that look like them, that they believe the way they do, being tortured, it makes them want to do us harm. It makes them hate us even more. The third main area of illegality during the Bush administration was summary execution and willful killing of prisoners. And this didn't just happen with the Haditha massacre and the Fallujah massacre. It happened in many, many cities in Iraq and Afghanistan, where U.S. soldiers would basically execute people in cold blood, civilians, no trial, and again, making us less safe, illegal, immoral. The fourth main area was Guantanamo, and still is Guantanamo, where upwards of 750, 800 men and boys were held indefinitely at Guantanamo, many of them tortured or severely abused. And although the torture has largely ended under the Obama administration continues to force feed the prisoners at Guantanamo, which constitutes torture or cruel treatment according to the UN. Then spying on Americans, the illegal surveillance program, which came to light when the Washington Post exposed it. No, I think that was the torture program. The New York Times exposed the surveillance program, terrorist surveillance program, which was illegal until Congress retroactively said that it was legal. Congress basically giving Bush anything he wanted after the 9/11 attacks. The Patriot Act, for example, many of the provisions in the Patriot Act were, the Bush administration tried to get those through Congress before 9/11, and they said no, but within 3 weeks of 9/11, I think it was about 3 weeks, the Congress had passed a 352-page bill, the Patriot Act. Many of them had never even read the provisions in the Patriot Act. And, of course, that weakened the protections against illegal surveillance, and we know that continues as well. Refusing to execute the law, Bush would sign a bill that Congress passed and then attach what's called a signing statement. And he did that more than all other presidents combined, basically saying, I don't think that that provision is constitutional. I'm not going to follow that. And just a couple of examples of his signing statements saying that he wasn't going to follow laws that Congress had passed, laws such as forbidding the use in military intelligence of evidence collected in violation of the Fourth Amendment, mandating new regulations for military prisons where military lawyers could advise commanders on the legality of certain treatment, requiring the retraining of prison guards in humane treatment under the Geneva Conventions, and mandating background checks for civilian contractors in Iraq. Civilian contractors, really, we're talking about mercenaries. So those were really the 6 major areas that I identified. There are, of course, many, many more. But since I had to distill it to a few points so as not to lose the audience, those were the ones that I focused on.
All right, and then now we're going into the final year of Obama's administration. You have been very outspoken in both the Bush administration's criminal actions during the war. You had probably hoped that Eric Holder and others would bring him to trial. He hasn't. What are you seeing now under Obama and reflecting on his presidency and what he's been doing in his foreign policy that's either illegal or highly immoral and unethical?
Well, I think something that's really critical here, and that is that Obama has refused to allow accountability for the wrongdoing and the illegality during the Bush administration. Under the Take Care Clause of the Constitution, it is the president's duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. And that means that when there's probable cause to believe that someone committed a crime, whether that person is the president or a member of his administration or a person on the street, then the executive branch is supposed to bring them to justice. And yet Obama has said, I want to look forward, not backward. He does not want prosecutions of the Bush officials, which violates his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. He has continued the surveillance program. He's continued force-feeding prisoners at Guantanamo. One of the most egregious things that Obama continues to do more and more is his drone wars in about 7 different countries that we're not even at war with, where his administration maintains what is called a kill list. That they go through the kill chain, the people in the chain of command, go through and decide who is going to be basically assassinated, illegally assassinated with no due process. We're not talking about killing someone on a battlefield, which under the laws of war is lawful. But we're talking about just taking people out who are driving in a caravan, who are walking in their yards, who are attending a funeral, who are at a wedding party. And this is illegal. It violates the UN Charter. It violates the Geneva Conventions, which say that civilians cannot be targeted. It violates the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. All of these treaties the U.S. has ratified, making them part of domestic law under the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution, and yet. The International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights requires due process. Requires that before someone is convicted and punished and even given the death penalty, that person be charged and tried. And yet, although Obama says that our preference is for capture, and I don't like that word capture, animals are captured, people are apprehended. Our preference is for capture. In fact, Obama has added only 1 prisoner to the rolls of Guantanamo. He just assassinates them, whereas Bush had illegally detained them, tortured them. Obama assassinates them, and there have been more people killed with drones, many, many more people were killed with drones in Obama's two terms, then died on 9/11. And there are two different kinds of drone attacks. There are personality strikes, which identify individuals and don't even do a very good job of that. We saw when the Intercept published the drone papers, which were leaked by a very courageous anonymous whistleblower. But there are also what are called signature strikes or crowd killings, where many times the administration doesn't even know who they're killing. They're killing all men of military age, 16 to 65, say, in an area of suspicious activity. I mean, this is just outrageous. And so whereas Obama says we want to have near certainty that the bad guys are the ones we're going to be killing, when there's signature strikes, crowd killings, they don't know who they're killing. And one of the big problems, Arn, is that Americans, although Americans are certainly opposed to the killing of civilians, most Americans favor these drone strikes because U.S. Soldiers are not killed. These drones are operated by pilots, 7,500, 8,000 miles away. Pilots, by the way, who are leaving in droves, will not fly these drones because of the PTSD that they are developing, even though they're so far away from their target. We don't hear the stories of these drone victims. We don't see the results of our drone bombs. And so when we hear about ISIS beheading someone, we are justifiably horrified. But we never see the images of the babies blown up by drones, of their limbs, their body parts scattered around. And I do think that if Americans saw that the way we saw the results of our bombing during the Vietnam War, that there would be tremendous opposition to what Obama is doing. And so whereas I had a lot of hope when Obama was elected that things would really change, and domestically they have. I mean, we have the Affordable Care Act, which is very significant. It's not perfect. Many, many more people have health insurance than ever did before. Millions of people do. There are some domestic things that Obama has done that are important. His foreign policy is really very, very disturbing, in addition to being illegal.
Your last word is exactly where I want to go. I mean, most people who I've tried to interview or people that I've tried to share information with, I've not been able to bring in the legal perspective. So we've been able to get so much information with regards to the drone attacks. For example, I believe there's been about 2,500 people killed under the drone program with Obama. Is that correct?
Upwards of 4,500.
4,500. We don't know how many of them were civilians. We're not sure how many of them were military. Chelsea Manning exposed the fact that it's obvious. We know that innocent people are being killed. We know that it's creating more terrorism. But the legal part that you touch on that's very interesting to distinguish here is Obama inherited a war that was essentially an invasion, an illegal invasion of both Afghanistan and Iraq. Neither one of those countries fell under the laws that allow a country to go to war, correct?
Correct.
So it would...
And let me just say that after 9/11, when Bush invaded Afghanistan, just a few weeks after 9/11 in October, there was very little opposition. Get the bad guys.
Right.
And the invasion of Afghanistan was also illegal.
Yes.
Under the UN Charter, because Afghanistan had not attacked us. And in fact, the 9/11 bombers, the 9/11 hijackers, rather, I think 15 of them came from Saudi Arabia. None of them came from Afghanistan. And by saying, well, we think that the Taliban in Afghanistan are harboring Osama bin Laden and he was behind the attacks, that is not a legal basis under the UN Charter, even if it's true, is not a legal basis to invade another country. I mean, if it was, then in 1979, after the Iranian Revolution, when the people rose up and overthrew the vicious Shah, the dictator the U.S. illegally installed 25 years before, and the Shah came to the United States to receive medical treatment and got safe haven here. Let's say that the new government of Iran had come to Jimmy Carter, the president of the United States, and said, "You're harboring a terrorist."
Right, that's such a great example.
Send him back to us, or we're going to invade you. And if we didn't send him back, would Iran be able to legally attack us? No, of course not. So that was not a legal reason for invading Afghanistan. And we know, even aside from the illegality and all of the people who have been killed and tortured, and the instability created, that it's a gift that keeps on giving. I mean, Obama it cannot pull out because things continue to get worse. He says he can't pull out, whereas, of course, he could if he wanted to. And so we need more time to train Afghan fighters. Well, it's already been something like 14 years. And again, that has created...
Hello? That has created what?
A whole host of other problems,
okay.
I said.
I don't know if it's fair to go big picture, but if we take that analysis and say, under the Nuremberg trials that occurred after World War II against Germany, there's enough evidence that over the past 15 years, between invasion, torture, mass killings, the list you already gave us, that the United States would fall under the same set of principles that was applied to Germany in World War II. Is that a fair assessment?
The U.S. government, well, under the Nuremberg principles, the Nuremberg tribunals, and there were several of them, the Nuremberg trials, basically had jurisdiction to try 4 different types of crimes: genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and the crime of aggression. The Bush administration certainly committed war crimes, and I think that Obama administration is committing war crimes as well with their killing of civilians with the drones. The crimes against humanity also, there were crimes against humanity committed by the Bush administration and by the Obama administration as well. Genocide, I don't think we need to go there. Crime of aggression. The crime of aggression, which is, there has not been an agreed upon definition under the International Criminal Court, but under the Nuremberg Tribunal and under a General Assembly resolution, certainly the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan qualify as crimes of aggression. And at Nuremberg, the crime of aggression was considered to be the supreme international crime because it subsumed within itself all of the other crimes: genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity. So there are certainly Nuremberg crimes that were punished at Nuremberg, that were prosecuted and punished at Nuremberg, that could be used in prosecutions of Bush officials and even of some Obama officials as well.
So progressives have a very difficult time with this issue, that Obama could be at this same level. How do legal experts frame the level of or degree of illegal activity, injustice? The way I'd say it simply is, at what point are you willing to be complicit because the rest of the world is viewing us through these set of principles and are saying, well, America is saying, do what I say, not what I do?
Yes. This is what you're referring to is called American exceptionalism. Basically, we're Americans, and you hear when Obama gives speeches, and the presidents before him and many of the officials, they say we're exceptional. In fact, he said it recently when he was talking about ISIS. We're exceptional. We're the best. God bless America. And not everybody else. And a good example of this is with the drones, where there was very little opposition to drone deaths of people in other countries. But when, I think this was in 2011, there was a or it's 2013, a leak of a Department of Justice white paper that had been prepared in 2011 with rules for killing U.S. civilians with drones and other forms of targeted killing. And when Americans found out that Americans could be targeted, then they were very upset. And Rand Paul mounted his 13-hour filibuster against John Brennan's confirmation as CIA director. And this motivated Archbishop Desmond Tutu to write a letter to the New York Times saying, do you mean to say that that our lives are not as valuable as American lives? And when I read that letter, it really struck me, and that's why I invited Archbishop Tutu to write the foreword to my book, Drones and Targeted Killing, which he graciously agreed to do, and he elaborates on that. But it's this whole notion of American exceptionalism. And getting back to many people, liberals, who don't want to criticize Obama, I think the most important thing is to point out the facts and to educate them about what's happening. Now, there is a difference of opinion on the left about whether or not, for example, let's say, I mean, I'm supporting Bernie Sanders. I don't love his foreign policy. I prefer Jill Stein's of the Green Party, but I think Bernie Sanders in many ways would make a terrific president. I don't support Hillary Clinton, but I have to tell you that if Hillary Clinton did get the nomination, I would vote for her. And the reason I would vote for her over any of these Republicans, many of whom are talking about it's okay to kill civilians because Americans are superior, is the Supreme Court. The next president, if the next president has 2 terms, that next president could appoint 4 different justices to the Supreme Court, which could radically change the law in this country, anywhere from workers' rights, health care, the rights of same-sex marriage, you name it, abortion rights, civil rights. I mean, it could completely turn the law upside down. And so I think that it's important to keep that perspective, to criticize Democrats from the left when they deserve criticizing, but not to throw out the baby with the bathwater, because if you look at the lineup of Republicans and what they're talking about and what they would do, that in many ways is even more frightening than what any Democrat would do. And I think Hillary Clinton, is very much of a hawk, probably more of a hawk than Obama. I have no doubt that she would continue the drone war. She wants to bomb ISIS. She wants a no-fly zone, which, ISIS doesn't have airplanes. So who are you going to shoot down? Russian and Syrian planes? I mean, it's just nuts. But so it's kind of a complicated issue, but I don't think that people on the left should be afraid to criticize even a Democrat when that Democrat, like Obama, deserves criticism.
Well, there are a lot more questions I want to ask you, but why don't we let this interview digest with people, because I think you've done an amazing job informing people of the legal issues. I also want to give you the final word, but Marjorie, your website is
www.marjoriecohn.com.
Okay, and I'm going to put some links to some of the things that I'm really fascinated by with you. If you could weave in one of my favorite topics, the authorization for military force, and we know that Congress hasn't used it since World War II, but you've also written and spoken about that. Please tell people how you feel they can bring greater awareness to what they might think is complex issues, but I think you do a great job of helping us simplify them and articulate them. How can people help?
I think you're talking about the War Powers Resolution that hasn't been used
Right.
since World War II, but the authorization for use of military force, which Congress gave Bush shortly after 9/11, does not cover ISIS. And
Right.
Bush and Obama knows it, and yet he continues to mount that illegal war.
Well,
what he should be doing is focusing on diplomacy. He should be pressuring our allies like Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Republic, the United Arab Emirates, to stop allowing ISIS to cross their borders, to stop financing and arming all the groups who claim to oppose President Assad, pursue relationships with nonviolent groups who are pursuing nonviolent solutions in Syria, the Organization of Women's Freedom and Federation of Workers' Council and Trade Unions in Iraq, and also push for the repeal of the 2001 authorization for the use of military force and prevent the passage of a new one that would authorize a war. Because even if Congress were to pass a new AUMF, authorization for the use of military force, it would still violate the United Nations Charter, which only allows the use of military force in self-defense after an armed attack by another country, and that has not happened.
Well, thank you so much. What are you going to be, are you working on anything new that we'll see in the next month?
Yes, I'm working on a piece about bringing Exxon Mobil to account for the lies they told in the cover-up about what they were doing to the climate years and years ago, and how those solutions can be pursued. I'm working on that piece for Truth Out. It should be out in the next week or two.
Great. I'll make sure everyone gets hold of it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Orrin. I appreciate it.
Bye
Thanks
now.
a lot.
Happy New Year.
You too.